Hello. In the following example, we want to decide whether each relation defines a function and give the domain and range. We've already done this with graphs. Now we want to do this with the actual equations, or in this case, some of these are inequalities. Look at A real quick. What I want to do is I want to talk about functions, and I'm going to start out by just telling you which ones of these are functions and which ones are not. A is yes, B is yes, C is no, D is no, and E is yes. Let's talk about why some of these are functions and why which ones are not. I'm going to start with why not. D is an inequality. Because it is an inequality, it is guaranteed to not be a function. Just keep that in mind. Anytime you see an inequality, it is not a function. Okay, let's look at the rest of these. The rest of these are equations. Therefore, let's figure out why these others are functions, but C is not a function. Well, it all has to do with your y variable. If your y variable is to an odd exponent, then it is going to be a function. So in other words, odd exponent for the y variable is a function. And here's why. A should be obvious that it's a function because it's just a line, and all lines are functions, except for vertical lines. B, well, this is y equals the square root of 2x minus 1. C is y squared equals x, and y equals 5 divided by x minus 1. That's B, C, and E. Here's the reason B and E are functions and C is not, besides the even exponent for C. It actually has to do with the zero factor property. So if you look at C, y squared equals x. If I wanted to, I could solve for y, and that solving would give me y equals plus or minus the square root of x. And because of that, that makes C not a function because there will be two values for any given value of x, except for 0. At least any of them that are in the domain. For this function at least. Now for x here, if I plug in 1, in other words, if I plug in 1 for x, I want to know what y is. Well, the square root of 1 is 1. So that would leave me with plus or minus 1. In other words, I'd have 1 negative 1 or 1 positive 1. Now I don't really need the plus there, but just to make it easier to see. So 1 is corresponding to both negative 1 and positive 1, which means that this right here would be a vertical line through which you would have 2 points. So C would not be a function, and anytime you have an even exponent, that is going to happen. In other words, just look for your even exponents on your y value. If they're even, it is not a function. Or in other words, if it's odd, it is a function. That's why A, B, C, D, and E, well, A is yes, B is yes, C is no, D, well, actually that's an inequality, so it's no, and E is yes. I've talked about the function. I'm going to come back and talk about the domain here in a second.